What's good, dumb guy? I'm your guide Q, and today we're going to be doing a little follow-up on the You How video. There's not going to be any new information, just some theories from people in the comments that I found pretty fascinating and entertaining. If you haven't seen my You How video, people seem to be liking it. Check it out before this for sure if you're going to watch this video. But let's get into some of the theories that you guys had on what may have happened to you/How. Fair warning, there are some themes of potential abuse happening in some of these theories, so just be ready for that sort of thing coming up. Let's start off with a theory from Dumb Guy himself. This may be a stretch, but I'm saying he was murdered. The smell of the clean clothes were a cover-up, washing her own/the victim's clothes, or maybe even together due to how strong the smell was. The cameras may have been set up for her to see anything that she didn't like, maybe the cops or you/How going up there to see what's happening. And the reason he hasn't been online in 2 years is probably because his wife came across it and didn't like it, or the cam girl thing could be correct and I'm just diving too deep into this. When I was originally making the you/How video, I sort of threw the murder idea out the window pretty quickly because it just felt super unlikely, but since this is the theories video, I'm going to try to argue for the possibility of all of these theories because I think it's just way more fun. And for me, in order for murder to be a possibility, I feel like there needs to be some sort of outside access to the second floor. Maybe like a staircase or a fire escape that goes up there. Because since they're both quarantining, I really doubt the girlfriend is going to be just like dragging bodies up the main staircase in the house. It's going to be pretty loud and noticeable. Or she could just be preparing to do some murders after the quarantine is over, and so she's just setting everything up so that once her husband is out of the house more, she can start doing the murdering. But I am definitely intrigued by the idea of there being an outside staircase to the second floor, because if there is one, that just opens up the possibility for accomplices and tons of other things to possibly be happening up there. So our friend Tapir says, cam girl with a 24-hour house view, and she doesn't allow him up there because it would break the illusion that she has a 24-hour cam in her home and she's a single girl. The idea of a 24-hour stream in general going on, regardless of it being cam girl or not, is definitely very intriguing to me because my brain immediately goes to like, oh, this is some dark web red room shit going on. Like, I still want to believe that it exists. I mean, if it exists, it's a very bad thing to exist, but like in a fantasy world, red rooms are interesting to me. But in our real world, I've definitely watched way too much Mutahar deep web, dank web browsing to really be able to buy the creepiness of the dank net anymore. Okay, this one is extremely ominous from Sati Marie Frost. I reckon she's got a kid up there. Probably one that she had before she met him, possibly from abuse from a family member as a teenager. The kid's old enough to have been brainwashed to not make a sound. Amazon parcels are food, clothing, and a few games and toys that don't make noise. She spends half the day up there because she's homeschooling and because she wants to spend time with her kid. Cameras are to keep an eye on the kid when she's downstairs. Are they the type that you can watch on your phone, maybe? That, or I've spent too long in the social work field. Or read too much Virginia Andrews as a teenager. So the thing that immediately creeps me out is, this is a person who has worked in the social work field. Is this something you, like, see on a regular basis? Because that would be absolutely horrifying. And if she does have a kid up there, like, she could, this is my theory, she could be thinking that she's doing all of the right things, you know, in some trauma response to protect her kid from the world, like everybody, including her husband. But in that journey, she's actually fucking up the kid, like, really badly in the guise of trying to protect him. Our friend Spicy Mayo Gaming has a theory as well. If true, I think this is a power play for the relationship. Set an unreasonable boundary for him that a reasonable person would inevitably cross and guilt him for being some controlling husband that needs to keep tabs on everything happening in the household, and essentially simplify him little by little until he concedes to her and not question anything she does. While I don't see her teen years being crazy, I mean, what teen hasn't barred anyone from going into their rooms, really? It makes sense because she allowed him to see her room, and that gave him some FOS to trust that she wouldn't hide anything from him because he was seeing, at the time, the most vulnerable place in her life, so of course he wouldn't see that as a red flag. To delve further into the power play theory, the setting of a boundary alone probably wouldn't be enough for anyone. You have to also set up bait. So here come the boxes of miscellaneous things coming into the house, but what could they be? So she leaked buying cams in their shared Amazon account to sweeten the bait that would implore anyone to say fuck it and just march up there to see what the actual fuck is up there. Proof is in the pudding too, because most of the comments on that thread say as much. They would just go up there. The curiosity bucket has been overflowing and pretty much saturated the carpet. It's practically begging for anyone to just go upstairs. The most boring theory, yes. The most manipulative, also yes. So I definitely do not think that this theory is boring. I actually think it's extremely terrifying. Like, outside of, there are some theories that we're going to get into over past trauma and maybe some, OCD. I'm not going to diagnose anybody in a random Reddit story, but just stuff like that could lead to her wanting to be very private and controlled of her space. But this is more just like an evil person trying to find out how to best manipulate this person. And the idea that this is all just a test terrifies me, because if he really just doesn't go upstairs after all of this baiting, as Spicy Mayo describes, it really proves that he is gonna be a very easy person to manipulate for this girl. So if she actually has some, nefarious intent, and she's just trying to, increasingly test him to see what she can get away with, the end result of that could be really, really sinister. LeeLove96 is coming in with a very spicy theory. My theory is that the original poster is actually the woman. She'd been toying around with being able to do this if she ever found a mate. So she posted the question to see how others would view the behavior. Or maybe there is no woman. Maybe it's the man trying to feel out other users in the event that he finds a woman to marry. Like, how could he section off an entire portion of the house to himself? That's why no advice or insight was accepted, because he/she had set a basis that couldn't be changed. At the very least, we know rooms have to be sectioned off for use by one person. That person cannot be asked what rooms are being used for. The other person cannot go into the rooms. The other person has to find a way to be okay with the living arrangements. None of that is allowed to change. Meanwhile, smells. This theory is absolutely incredible, because the way that they set it up, it actually feels really plausible, almost as plausible as the fake post theory, because this person is literally just testing to see how people would try and break down this situation to maybe adjust their plan to be more effective, or maybe find the exact right type of person to try this out on. Seductive Sasquatch says, honestly, I think his GF may be a hoarder. Constantly ordering packages from Amazon, the smell of linen. She probably installed the cameras out of fear that OP would figure out she's a hoarder, or out of fear that someone would steal the items she's hoarding. I grew up in a house which my mother hoarded, and she would refuse to let anyone besides our family in the house. I assume that OP's GF may predominantly hoard clothing. Just my 2 cents. I'm super disappointed in myself that I did not think of this initially as an option, because it feels really likely to me. I definitely know that I did not realize how big of a problem hoarding was until I actually looked at the statistics and stuff. It's pretty common. And hoarders, at least from what I've seen from the dumb television program, seem to be simultaneously very protective and embarrassed of their hoard, and they also tend to shut down immediately when people try to talk to them about it or even bring up stuff like that. Ashley AJ says, I think what seems to be the obvious elephant in the room, or rather the entire upstairs, is that Yuhao is a victim of emotional domestic abuse by a controlling partner who suffers from her own trauma. Kelsey's triggers, I don't know where they got the name Kelsey from. Maybe they knew a Kelsey that was just a huge piece of shit, and so they're just inserting that name here. But I don't think Kelsey was ever mentioned in the original post. Kelsey's triggers not only demonstrate her likely history of being a victim of abuse, but also illustrate her willingness to manipulate Yuhao into feeding into her own trauma. Based on Yuhao's lack of discussion regarding reaching out to friends or family around him about this issue, he has likely been completely isolated by his abuser over the past 4 years. His mistaken mindset that they have an extremely close and open relationship, while not being able to recognize how severely one-sided the sharing of their personal history is, indicates the typical brainwashing from which victims of spousal or domestic abuse typically suffer. Additionally, the mere idea of intruding upon their shared space, or more accurately, the mere idea of disobeying Kelsey, causes Yuhao to lash out angrily as a defense mechanism to justify his passiveness to himself. Sure, the mystery of what is being hidden is fun to ponder, but it's no mystery how severely isolated, manipulated, and abused Yuhao truly is. I personally feel like this is less of a theory and more kind of just spitting straight facts. I mean, we're all speculating here, but I even mentioned in the video that the second you try and think of like a friend or family member of you/How being informed of this situation, everything breaks down. Well, that could be because he just hasn't reached out to anyone. To me, it seems pretty clear, just on a speculative level, that he is either currently being abused or is just the perfect victim for this sort of thing happening because of his intensely passive approach to the situation, and that makes me extremely concerned. Thine Cubius says, assuming this is a real story, the cam girl theory is incredibly likely. She states that she was doing OP a favor, but at the same time saying he would be upset if he found out what's happening. She's doing him a favor by generating more income, but in such a way where he'd obviously be offended. And there were a million other comments, I mean not a million, like hundreds of other comments defending the cam girl theory, and I also think it's just probably one of the most likely theories out there. Alright, so there were a million comments saying that they did not understand if she was going to be a cam girl or something, why would she need all 4 rooms upstairs? And while I do think that there's a potential possibility that all 4 rooms could be used for like different scenes, different acts and stuff like that, I also think that you could just have one room that's for all of your recording, live streaming, whatever, and off-limiting the other 3 rooms is just, you don't want him to get too close. It's so much easier to protect something weird going on when somebody's barred from an entire floor, as opposed to them being able to be in the rooms right next door to it all the time. Cats Over Brats comes in saying, it smells like old linens. Oh, so she's selling LuLaRoe? That would also make the many packages make sense. If she's in an MLM, spending all her money, and probably his too, she doesn't want him to know because deep inside she knows how fucked up it is. And I think this is actually a decent possibility because I think most people that are getting into MLMs, like, they understand that it's a very maligned business model, and so they may be embarrassed to share with their partner that they're doing it. Okay, Amanda Styles came up with an incredible theory. It would be a crazy twist if she was remodeling the upstairs so he could have the ultimate game room or something, and since it's his last post, he's gotten the surprise. It doesn't really seem likely, but it would be a nice wholesome twist to the story. This would be like the craziest bait and switch of all time, to the point where it's like, does the end justify the means? Like, yeah, he gets this surprise of having a super cool game room set up, but he also went through the anxiety of wondering what the fuck was going on for months, but this would be sick. Feel free to continue giving theories. I probably won't make another video, but I definitely enjoy reading them, and let me know, like, what was your favorite theory, what was the most plausible, etc. I've got a painfully bad SpongeBob creepypasta on top, Reddit's safe space for stalkers on the bottom, and the channel members to the left and the right. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much for the support on the Yuhao video, and I'll see you all super soon. Peace out, Cub Scouts. Skate on to the best of your abilities. Make sure you're drinking a sufficient amount of water, and I'll see you super soon.